Hello, everyone at Eswatini. Thank you for joining our second installment of the Eswatini and Tetra workshop today. My name is Chen Li, and I am the CEO and Chief Scientist of Spark Amplify. Today in our topic will be branding success in the digital age. And what makes today's talk especially special is that we will be utilizing crowdfunding marketing as a reference in terms of how to achieve branding success in this new digital age. And so that will be our main topic for today. So before we belabor any further, let's continue our talk. Let's start a talk. Today's agenda essentially will be broken down to or broken into four major components. Before we dive into the topic of crowdfunding, I would like to share with you all the, sort of a digital marketing landscape overview, allowing you guys to sort of have an understanding of the traditional marketing versus the digital marketing, and especially with obviously the new normal. How do we utilize? What are some of the techniques that we can use for digital marketing to succeed in branding success? And afterwards, we'll look into crowdfunding in a sense of, first of all, why do we consider crowdfunding? And then also at the same time, we will take a look at one of the key components of any marketing campaign, whether it be crowdfunding, whether it be any brand marketing campaigns, is the importance of storytelling. And in the age of digital marketing nowadays, storytelling sometimes is most efficiently and also most populated with the video content. And so we're going to be looking at how do we actually capture that storytelling magic within a, let's say, a 1.5 or 2-minute video that you guys can potentially consider when you guys are running your own marketing campaigns. And then lastly, we'll really dive into the entire process of crowdfunding, and in terms of 3 phases. Before, in terms of what do we do before the campaign starts, what do we do during the, let's say, the 30 to 40 days campaign that is currently being executed, as well as what do we do after, in terms of when the campaign ends, that's when the real work actually starts. What do we have to do and prepare for after the campaign? So essentially today, like we mentioned, branding success is our objective, and we are going to not only look at digital marketing, but also looking at how crowdfunding, the process of crowdfunding can help and facilitate the branding success objective. And if this is not your first time attending this series of workshop, prior, I also talked in previous workshops before, so some of you might know me, some of you don't. But anyway, my name is Chan Li, and I'm currently the founder and chief scientist at Spark Amplify, and where we provide AI-powered PR. And as a personal biography background, I was born in Taiwan and grew up in the States, and so not only educated but also have accumulated various corporate experience in terms of consulting, in terms of corporate marketing, sales, and some of my specialties in terms of experience involves or includes PR strategy, planning and execution, B2B growth marketing, social media marketing, as well as CRM and data analytics. And then furthermore, with over 15 years of corporate and also professional experience, in the past, I've consulted for Fortune 500 companies, especially in the States. And so today, in our session, I'll definitely be sharing with all of you some of those experiences from my past, let's say 10 to 15 years. And then furthermore, how we can utilize or leverage crowdfunding potentially as a marketing technique for Eswatini brands and as well as product developers and makers to consider and think about how to promote your product into the global stage. So that will be our main objective for today. And so, like I said, before we begin, I definitely want to sort of share with you guys in terms of the digital marketing landscape. So sort of lay down the groundwork in terms of giving you guys the necessary background information before we dive into crowdfunding redefined. So in terms of digital marketing, as we all know, we're currently, right now is 2022. In these past 20, 30 years, we have been transitioning from the traditional to digital. And I think for many of us, hopefully, we are no longer potentially utilizing some of the traditional methods, but however, taking advantage of the digital strategies. And so with that being said, gone are the good old days, or the old days when, if we all still remember, in the past, when we are looking for B2B company information, we usually look for Yellow Pages, right? So Yellow Pages were essentially the search engine of 1980s. Okay, and if you all remember what Yellow Pages look like, they were essentially, a very thick book with company information, which included company name as well as their phone numbers. And why were they called Yellow Pages? Because these information were printed on yellow colored papers. And so usually in the past, we were utilizing something like this to look for B2B company information. But nowadays, of course, we use more Google information, in terms of the search. And also think about it. I mean, in the past, TV was a critical visual communication platform. But now, especially with internet, YouTube has, to some extent, become a very important visual information provider. And furthermore, the printed magazines, the printed articles that were in the past printed in, let's say, magazine format, pamphlet format, nowadays, a lot of that information are also being transformed into digital, and furthermore in formats such as, let's say, digital text, or let's say through personal or maybe even company blogs. And then lastly, I think in terms of advertisements, whether it be from the corporate side, whether it be from the personal, editorial side, sometimes when we're looking at ads in the past, they were usually in printed format in newspapers and magazines. Those are all most certainly gone now, because a lot of the ads are going on to more digital, especially in a lot of the social media platforms that I think you and we all have access to every day, including platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, so forth, right? So those were the good old days. And so as you can see, the evolution of digital marketing, especially these past 30 years, have really taken shape. Not only replacing a lot of the sort of the traditional marketing channels, however, at the same time, throughout these 20, 30 years, many of these digital formats have become sort of the majority. And the reason why is mainly because of the rise of the internet. And so the internet has changed many things. And I think nowadays, a lot of times we spend more time on the internet, potentially even more than the time that we spend with our families, And so with that being said, I think it's really time to accept digital marketing, in a sense of how do we really utilize digital marketing like we talked about before, right? How do we utilize digital marketing to build that brand success in this new age? And so with digital marketing, it is really a very general term to some extent. And so what does it really actually mean? So here is a brief and to some extent very specific definition. Digital marketing in essence is all about these different digital platforms, such as, let's say, your website or any website. It involves blogs, it involves social media, it involves a lot of the, let's say, the smartphone mobility marketing. The objective of all these platforms is to hopefully, from the representation or the position of the brand itself, the goal is to be able to utilize these different platforms and channels to be able to reach your intended target audience. And so that is essentially the purpose of any marketing activity. Now it's just that because it's digital marketing, we're utilizing these different platforms to be able to reach our intended audience. Whereas in the past, when we were trying to reach our target audience through the traditional marketing method, it would be, like we mentioned before, yellow pages. It would be newspaper ads. Instead of the digital aspect, it would be more of the sort of the analog or the paper format. So when we are looking at digital marketing, we can never forget, the complementation of digital advertising. And in fact, with the rise of the digital marketing, it has to some extent disrupted advertising in general. So not only is digital marketing is easy to start and manage, whereas in the before, I think when we wanted to potentially pursue advertising as a marketing channel, there would always be, to some extent, some barriers or obstacles. You would need to have certain amount of, let's say, experience. But nowadays, I think with a lot of these different platforms and tools, it is to some extent have lowered the barriers to entry and have made the whole entire process not only easier, but also easier in the sense of managing as well as monitoring as well. And then furthermore, digital marketing has been proven that in terms of the affordability, in terms of the cost, it has also very drastically decreased as well, compared to, the traditional marketing option. And then furthermore, because digital marketing, it is not only through the process or through internet, but there is a lot of data that's being collected every step of the way. We are then able to better understand the performance, better understand in terms of the target audience engagement. And so in that respect, we are then able to make digital marketing more effective than, let's say, in the past, whereas in traditional marketing, sometimes we really cannot really accurately quantify the performance as well as the optimization process. And so usually when I am sharing with people around the world about digital marketing, it is really four key components, the makeup of four key components. And these four key components consist of audience, number one, two, content, third is the context, and the fourth being the medium. And so I'll be sharing with you guys what are some of these four digital components. In terms of audience, I think this is the critical key in terms of any marketing campaign, right? Our goal is to be able to reach the right audience. So, and these are the people that will ultimately consume your message. Whatever content message that you are presenting, these are the people that will essentially, be on the recipient side of this. And so in terms of audience definition, there is usually the standard way of identifying the audience would be through demographics. Let's say the age, their income level, their gender, even their lifestyle, interest, occupation, education, and things of that nature. So from a marketing perspective, usually when we look at our brand or when we look at our product, we would have specific audience segmentations that we would like to target. And so that would essentially help us better define who we are trying to reach. Now, once we have the audience identified, the next step is, what is that message or that content that we need to create so that they can understand what's our objective? And so usually the content consists of different formats. Traditionally, a lot of the content is residing in sort of the text format. However, especially with the rise of internet, especially with all these different multimedia options, nowadays the content essentially exceeds not only just the plain text, but it actually enters into other formats such as video, images, audio, and then furthermore, there even, recently there's a lot of the XR, AR, VR stuff, right? So these are all different type of content formats that we can essentially help us tell our story in terms of that content. And then, so once we have the audience, once we have the content, it really gets back to the context itself. Context essentially defines the subject or the objective of this content. So when we are creating a video, when we're creating a piece of text or an article, there needs to be a reason, an objective. Maybe it's because we are potentially promoting our new product, or maybe because we have a campaign that we're running, so we want to share with the folks about the campaign details, right? So the context really essentially is the framework or the reason why you're actually doing this campaign itself. And so what I usually like to say, the message that these audience consume is actually the makeup of content plus context. That, not only do we, with the content aspect of it, we can get to choose our format, but also at the same time, with the context, we also get to define on what or who and why we are actually promoting this message. So these two combined together is essentially the message in that bottle, I guess. And so with that being said, the best medium right nowadays, especially for digital marketing, is the internet. So internet is the right medium to reach your target audience. And so when we're looking at the medium, there is, like we mentioned before, there's various types of these different platforms nowadays. There are the social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. There are these search engines such as Google, Bing. There are, video, video social media such as YouTube, Vimeo. And then there's also a lot of the things that we actually, as businesses, we usually utilize. We use email marketing, newsletter marketing, affiliate marketing. So as you can see, the channel is, there is a huge variety. And so when we're looking at medium, internet essentially is the backbone of all these different platforms. And so when we're looking at digital marketing, it's mainly segmented in two parts. So usually when we're looking at digital marketing, there is two components. One is what we're all very familiar with, which is social media marketing. That's where we essentially spend a lot of our time on. Let's say, for example, on Facebook, we spend it, we are on that platform to connect with our friends, connect with our family, but also at the same time, there's also search engine marketing. Search engine marketing essentially is, to some extent, what we mentioned before, right? That is almost like that yellow page that we talked about before. And why is that important, right? So not only from a personal perspective, but from a business perspective, sometimes we utilize search engines to look for information that we are currently in need of, whether it be because of for work, whether it be for our personal development. But anyway, these two components is essentially takes up, I would say, maybe 70 or 80% of our digital activities. And so, like I said, search engine marketing helps target audience find what they're looking for. So these target audience, usually when you go to search engine marketing, you already know what you're looking for. You just are looking for more information around that specific keyword or topic. And so that's when you would go to search engine, type in the keyword, and hopefully Google or whatever other search engine provider that you use, based on the keywords that you provided, they would be able to provide or send you relevant information around that topic. Now, social media marketing helps brands engage target audience. So essentially, as a brand, we utilize social media to hopefully, through the various different personas or the segmentations that are currently on that specific platform, we are able to identify who are, based on the demographics, based on a lot of the attributes such as their lifestyle. We can then pinpoint and selectively introduce our information in terms of our brand to these different folks through the channel of social media. And so, with that being said, there's other components as well. In digital marketing, there is, what we're all very familiar with, because we all, as a brand, as a product, we usually have our websites. We have like we talked about, the search engine optimization. We utilize, social media or search engine to conduct advertising, which essentially is based on, pay-per-click concept, and email marketing, display advertising. These are all, in a nutshell, makes up what digital marketing is. And so furthermore, because the landscape, it is so vast, a lot of the companies, a lot of the startup companies, in fact, are developing tools to help facilitate the whole entire digital marketing process. So whether it be for content creation, whether it be for social media, whether it be for data analysis, whether it be for advertising, you name it, right? There is probably most likely a tool to help you along that process. And hopefully, whether it be you're a 10-year seasoned veteran or you are a newly graduate, there are tools out there that essentially would help you level the playing field, and furthermore, allow you to be able to hopefully be able to achieve what you're looking for in terms of branding success. So lastly, before we start the topic of crowdfunding, I just want to mention that there are, even though digital marketing is so vast, it is still evolving. The concept of digital marketing, it is evolving as we speak. There's a lot of things going on, and some of the key trends that we've not only already see, but also potentially foresee or forecast, is that as we move forward, digital marketing allows us to do some of the additional stuff that really is important, including marketing personalization. How can we personalize the whole entire marketing process? Something that we weren't able to do with traditional marketing. Also, content marketing. How do we, getting back to the essence of digital marketing, how can we create content not only to sell our product, but to educate the target audience that we're trying to reach? Video marketing is always going to be the key. Essentially, in fact, currently right now, 85% of the traffic that you see on internet is actually consists of video. So video is here to stay. It is the mainstay of the content that is currently being shared on internet. So we have to figure out a way of doing a better job on utilizing video to storytell. So that would be also one of our topics today. Mobile marketing is key, because nowadays we are transitioning from the desktop, which is essentially a static immobile apparatus that allows us to surf on the internet, to a lot of the to moving towards, let's say, notebook computers to even smartphones now, right? So nowadays, everyone essentially is walking around with a computer because of that smartphone. And so they are able to be connected almost 24/7. Either they're on the go or they're sitting in one place. But anyway, like I said, they're always connected. And so we have to think about how can we present that same type of information, not on a, let's say, a 20-inch monitor, or let's say a 14-inch computer, but we got to think about how we can optimize that information to a, let's say, a screen size of only a couple of inches, right? And then furthermore, still be able to engage with the target audience that we intend to engage. And then lastly, I think is customer reviews, right? Nowadays, people, whenever they buy anything nowadays, they usually don't like to just look at what the company brand itself is saying, how good they are, but they like to essentially look at what other people are talking about, and as a reference in terms of, is that something that I want to be able to purchase or use or buy, right? So customer reviews, how do we utilize that in terms of building that social proof sometimes in digital marketing becomes a critical point to the branding success in that new age. Okay, so that essentially gives us, a good 20 minutes, good background of digital marketing, and which I think is really important because it lays down the foundation of what we're going to be talking about next. And then crowdfunding is definitely a topic that we've identified, and it is one of our key topics for today. Now, however, there is a reason why we picked this topic. Yeah, there's 3 specific reasons, and let me share with you why first. And so this way we can continue on the actual process of crowdfunding. So as we all know today, we're currently, today, I'm presenting in front of the Eswatini crowd. And furthermore, as some of the research that I've done in the past, Eswatini as a economy in general, we do see that it is a very diverse economy. I think I shared with most of you on our last installment or our last workshop, but I wanted to bring this back again because first off, I just want to highlight that, because of that diversity, there are actually many products, or potentially from these different products, brands that can be pursued. However, when we dive into the diversity of this economy or your economy, we can see that apparel, it is one of a key industry in Eswatini, which I'm pretty sure you guys would all agree. And so based on that fact, that's also one of the reasons why we selected crowdfunding as one of the topics in today's discussion, is because when we look at crowdfunding, some of the most successful crowdfunding platforms, including Kickstarter, which we are currently looking at right now, some of the most successful crowdfunding campaigns actually came from apparel products. Okay, jackets, pants, different T-shirts. A lot of these different apparel clothing company utilizes crowdfunding to be successfully enter and successfully build their brands. So these are a few, just to name a few, from Kickstarter. And furthermore, I just want to share with you guys what's that potential, right? So Kickstarter, and a while back ago, they actually had a crowdfunding campaign that was what they consider to be the world's best travel jacket. Okay, and this jacket includes 25 features. Okay, so this, this is almost like the Swiss Army knife of jackets, right? Because it has all these different functions. And then furthermore, they utilize crowdfunding, and they were able to raise almost $4 million US. That's quite an amount of money. And then furthermore, through the crowdfunding campaign, they were able to engage with over 20,000 supporters or backers of their product. So think about it, right? You know, at Eswatini, we're a very diverse economy. However, at the same time, apparel is one of our key or important industries. Now, I am pretty sure not only do we have the manufacturing or the quality, but also at the same time, from a branding perspective, potentially utilize crowdfunding might be a option in terms of promoting not only Swatini made products, but also the brands that are created from these products. Now, secondly, is really looking at the development process itself, right? So traditional versus social. So what does that mean? So usually when we are, let's say, creating our product, let's say we're creating a jacket, let's say we're creating let's say, t-shirt, right? It really involves a long series of processes, especially like, when the product itself becomes more complicated. Not only is it a clothing, but it becomes like a computer or a smartphone. There is a series of process that needs to go through in order for a successful product development, which includes, feasibility analysis, includes some of the design aspect of it, whether it be from a hardware perspective, maybe it's the sort of the casing. And then from a clothing perspective, we probably need to look at, the fabric, the garment. And then furthermore, we have to, through that process, hopefully be able to build prototypes, to sort of have a good look and feel of what our product is going to be like. And then furthermore, we also need to go through rigorous testing and validations. And of course, when you deal with the electronic stuff, or maybe nowadays even with clothing stuff, there are compliances, there are certifications, SGS, things that needs to be approved of before you can start selling. And then at the final stage is that, time to market. And so a lot of times when we go through the traditional product development process, this process itself can take anywhere up from 3 months to as long as maybe over a year, right? So that process sometimes is very, very extensive. Now, however, when we think about the traditional aspect, and so let's say if we were to move on to the social aspect of it, which is essentially utilizing crowdfunding, a social product development process, not only it doesn't shorten the process, but it gets the crowd involved in the process. So for example, with the social product development process, when we have an idea in terms of a product development, it is really not a straight line, but we go through the same ideation process in terms of the proof of concept. We still create a prototype. But what's really key is the crowdfunding component, because usually when we, like in the previous slide, we actually, as a product maker, we only engage with the market at the very last stage, right? And a lot of times that is very risky, right? Because once we have created our product and then we engage the market, sometimes the users or the market, they may or may not always accept your product as it is, right? So let's say if they do, of course, you got lucky. Of course, yeah, there's a good chance you'll be successful. But more often than not, a lot of times there are going to be changes and modifications that needs to be done. And so with that being said, then we have to start the whole entire traditional process over again, which can be very time consuming and costly. But with the social product development process, through the process of engaging crowdfunding backers, we bring the market from the last stage to almost in the middle of the product development stage. So this way, before we start mass producing the product that we intend to create, before we mass produce and commit that, all that resource, we actually, through the crowdfunding process, we engage with the market, we understand who our target audience, listen to their feedback, but furthermore, the information that's provided in that we're able to modify our product before it gets into mass production. So hopefully with that, with the integration of crowdfunding in the product development process, we are able to, at the end of the cycle, we can hopefully create products that have a better chance of being accepted in the market. And furthermore, because going through the crowdfunding campaign, a lot of the marketing assets, such as the storytelling, the content, the text, the video, have already been created. It really shortens up, the time to market, because by the time it gets this market, it is already ready, not only from a product perspective, but also from a marketing perspective, because you have already gone through all the necessary steps, so that hopefully by including crowdfunding campaign in the product development process, it improves your chance of, back to our topic, right, a branding success in this digital age. And lastly, I just want to say, I think crowdfunding success sometimes, but not always, sometimes equals branding success. Why do I say that? Because when we look at digital marketing, which I just mentioned to you guys in the overview, in the landscape, you see that digital marketing covers the whole entire spectrum, right? And furthermore, when we look at crowdfunding, in order for you to be able to succeed in crowdfunding campaigns, it is important that we understand that whole entire spectrum. And furthermore, we are able to successfully execute along that whole entire spectrum. And then furthermore, you also need to have some added flavor of public relations. So with that being said, while you are running the crowdfunding campaign, you are not only covering all aspects of digital marketing as well as public relations, which is essentially helping you prepare for a more successful brand promotion. So that's, so those are the three main reasons why today, in our topic of branding success in the digital age, we decided to introduce or share with you the crowdfunding process, because I think by having this knowledge, not only is it relevant in the sense of from a Eswatini diverse economy perspective, not only is it from a product development perspective, but also from a digital marketing perspective, it all makes sense. So hopefully I was able to some extent, convince you all why crowdfunding is something that we should know, especially in the new digital age. And so now let's talk about crowdfunding. So let's take a look at, an overview. So what is crowdfunding? If you think about it, even though I'm pretty sure potentially many of you have not heard it before, but it has been around for quite some time. And in fact, it's been around since, 150 years ago, even before you and I existed. And why did I say that, right? Because if we look back in history, even back in those days, when businesses, commerce, when they're doing these different transactions, sometimes they tend to congregate local, let's say, people that have the money, that have financially are able to fund, let's say, projects. And there are potential entrepreneurs that have ideas that are looking for potential funding or resources to be able to carry out their, let's say, ideas or their plans, right? So even back then, there were activities like this where they, of course, it's not on internet because it wasn't even existed, but back then there were these type of activities where they bring these two type of people together and hopefully be able to mash them up and be able to hopefully be able to create or allow the entrepreneurs to carry out their plans or their ideas. Okay, so just to let you know, I mean, the concept of bringing, investors or bringing resources, connecting with people that have ideas, such as, or, have ideas or have products, this is nothing new. And it's just that because of the advent of time, now we have technologies, we have internet, we create platforms. And so this type of model, actually, there are various model options, right? So there are, sort of the equity crowdfunding. There is the lending crowdfunding. There is the reward-based crowdfunding, and there is the sort of the donation crowdfunding. And so today, because we are talking about, from a brand, from a product perspective, we're going to be focusing in on the reward-based crowdfunding. And with that being said, I mean, what are some of the bigger examples of reward-based? Most likely, more often than not, you probably heard of, let's say, Kickstarter or Indiegogo. These are the more popular reward-based crowdfunding campaigns, especially out in, let's say, US or Europe. Now, however, when you get into other parts of the world, let's say Asia or so forth, they have these different local crowdfunding campaigns, platforms that you can also choose from. Now, when we look at campaigns in general, as you can see, I mean, I just mentioned you guys that there are a lot of successful fashion apparel related campaigns, but it doesn't only get, is restricted to that. I think it actually covers a whole spectrum of product categories, right? There are technology, there are fashion, which we just mentioned, there are games, there are films, there are food, there's writing, there's design, comics, music, anything you can think of. I mean, because within these different categories, there's always new ideas that's being created or thought up, right? And so a lot of these creators, sometimes they have the ideas, but they may not have the funding, they may not have the resource to be able to carry out that project. And so that's where crowdfunding comes in, because the platform itself, like we mentioned, right? The good old days, the very old days where they try to bring in not only the people that have ideas, but also people have resources. The platform, nowadays are doing exactly the same thing, right? And so that's why you see there is a huge variety of different categories that you see crowdfunders take advantage of. So what's the process? What's the process, right? So ultimately, the three key factors of any successful crowdfunding campaign. It doesn't mean that if you have these three key success factors, you will guarantee success. But I've never seen a successful campaign that didn't have these three factors. Okay, so even though these three key factors doesn't mean it's guaranteed, but vice versa, all the successful campaigns must have these key factors. And what are they? First off, you got to be able to have a story, right? What's our story? Why are we creating this piece of, let's say, apparel, t-shirt or whatever? What's the story, right? Because you got to be able to sell to these different backers, right? You got to be able to convince them why they want to be able to support you. Secondly, it's about the team. Who do you have on your team? What resources do you have at Eswatini that you can allow this product to be made, right? There needs to be that team. And then lastly, once you have the story, you have the team, it really gets back to how can you create enough traction or followers around this topic or product that you're pushing out to hopefully be able to allow you to have a successful campaign. So these three key factors is a must for all successful campaigns. And it's definitely something that we all need to consider before we actually undertake a crowdfunding campaign in the future. And essentially, the key to success, or that genie in the bottle that we like to say, is what I like to usually share is that dance floor theory, right? So it's called momentum, right? So when you are running this campaign, which can be 30 days, it can be 40 days, your goal is to be able to drive traction. You got to be able to drive momentum, people to continuing on to come to your campaign page and look at your product, look at your story, and furthermore, at the end of the day, at the bottom or at the end of your video, they want to say, hey, this project story really resonates with what I believe in, or I really want to see this project or this product to become a successful product. And so they want to be able to support you. And so the dance floor theory essentially is this. In the past, think about it, right? When you're at a dance hall or a bar, whatever, when the stage is empty, no one wants to be that first person to be on that stage or be on the dance floor because they're shy. Yeah, they don't want to sort of draw attention to themselves. But when they have enough people on that dance floor, it's no longer that situation, right? By adding yourself to already the existing 20, 30, 40 people, you no longer bring attention to yourself. And then furthermore, you are able to attract more people to join in this process. And so the goal is this at crowdfunding campaigns. It's also the same thing. You don't want to let your supporter or backer to be the first person that's sort of supporting your campaign, but more importantly, you want to exhibit that, hey, there's already a lot of people that's supporting or actually is supporting this product. And you as another person, you don't want to miss out. So you want to be a part of this process. So the real reason I just want to share with you guys, the real reason why we all do this, money is important, but it is not the only reason. In fact, crowdfunding, like I mentioned before, allows you to build a customer base when you potentially haven't really developed that final product yet. It lets you have an early proof of concept, allowing you to make sure that there is a demand or need for this product that you are creating. And furthermore, it reduces risks because you are not committing all your resources on creating something that potentially you have not engaged with the market yet. But however, at the same time, you have brought the market in your development process so that they actually, to some extent, give you some feedback or validation that there is a need for this product or how you can improve on it. And lastly, it helps you market your idea, right? Because marketing sometimes it's all about testing. If you don't have the availability of testing, you don't know what works, what doesn't work. And so if you were to begin marketing after you have created your final product and have gone through that whole product development process, it may be a little risky because ultimately whatever that you are committed to in terms of the marketing, it may or may not work. So if you're able to do it a little bit earlier in the process, you are able to market your idea a lot quicker and also test the marketing technique as well. So even though I say money is not important, it is, right? So, we're in terms of brand creation, in terms of brand success, it is really all about, creating that intrinsic value for the long term, right? So if we're able to create a successful brand, not only can we apply that brand to a shirt, a t-shirt, but we can also apply it to a jacket. That brand value extends itself through different products, different product exhibitions, right? So, however, in crowdfunding, money is important, but it really affects on the potential success of these projects because as the goal or the money, the campaign goal that you set, the higher it is, the potentially the higher failure rate, right? So when you are setting that type of campaign funding goal, you really need to consider, you got to take into consideration the risks, but also at the same time, what do you really need at this moment in time to be able to successfully continue that product development process? So these are all some of the tips to a successful campaign, which we'll get into some of them later on in our slides today. So I'm not going to dive into all of these, but I think there's a couple of them that I want to share with you guys. One, I think, is really about solving a problem, right? The product that you, let's say, create with this apparel that you are trying to promote under this brand, we got to really think about, why do people want to buy this? Maybe is it because it is solving a problem? Maybe the garment or the fabric, the textile that people currently wear on their skin is not comfortable, so they need something that's more comfortable, or potentially appeal to people that have, let's say, allergic skin. So you got to be able to provide them with a different something that potentially is less allergic, right? So solving a problem, I think, is critical. Creating a solid plan, I think, is important too as well. I think and that's one of the reasons why I did last component of our talk today. It will be sharing with you guys the process itself. So there is a plan involved, right? And so once you are able to create a solid plan, then hopefully you are ready for not only the expected, but also the unexpected, which, to be honest, when we are doing any digital marketing campaign, let alone, crowdfunding, there's always a lot of these curveballs. These are a lot of these things that are unexpected. I think we also mentioned about great videos, right? How do you do storytelling? I think that's very critical. And then furthermore, I think at the end of the day, it's the campaign offline too, right? So when you are doing any digital campaign, just keep in mind, I mean, even though we do live in a digital age nowadays, and digital marketing, internet is essentially a very critical component of our life. But at the end of the day, we are still physical human beings that we engage with other individuals on a personal, face-to-face opportunity. And so sometimes when we are doing these different marketing campaigns, also think about, aside from the digital, what are some of the things that we can do physically from an offline perspective as well? So that's sort of the online, offline sort of interaction. Okay, so let's get into the storytelling magic component. And this usually involves the story, the video itself. Now, why did I specifically pull a section on this, highlight a section on this, is because the creation of video sometimes becomes almost just as important as the overall campaign itself, because the success or the acceptance of your video potentially can make or break your campaign. And so it is important that we understand, when we are hopefully promoting our brand, promoting our product, we also need to think about what's that storytelling, sort of that narrative, and how can we successfully be able to present it in a video format. So in terms of a successful video, usually it's really 4 key points. It's really about who you're trying to serve this video to. So you got to be able to understand who's your audience, right? So if your audience is gender is male, young male, that potentially is highly educated, right? So these are people that are potentially interested in this type of video. Whereas, let's say if you're looking at females, housewives, or maybe people that are within a higher age limit, once again, the type of video that they like to see may be different as well. So we, to be able to create a successful video, first we got to know our audience. Secondly, even though it is a video content format, it is, to some extent, you're selling experience. Yeah, you're trying to sell them a video enjoyment experience, right? If they enjoy the whole process of watching this video, they enjoy this experience, they will continue on watching and they'll finish the video. If they don't enjoy it, they may just watch it for 5 seconds, 3 seconds, and they leave, right? And then lastly, and then thirdly, I think keep it personal sometimes too. Sometimes, especially when you're creating crowdfunding campaigns, connect them on a personal level. If they think that this video was, to some extent, personalized for them, they are more willing to spend more time on it. And then, of course, lastly, I think, nowadays, everyone is always on the go. They're going from point A to point B. They're also doing, trying to get to a certain place. They're always busy commuting on the bus, train. Sometimes they don't have that much time. So we got to be able to get to the point. We got to be able to say what we want to say, show what we want to show in a brief amount of time so that get them interested, and so hopefully they would like to learn more about your brand, your product. So the pitch, I think sometimes it's very important too, right? So in a crowdfunding campaign, how do we make that pitch? You know, the pitch meaning, for example, what's that first, let's say, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, you know, because a lot of times people only have that, you know, time span. So how do you make that pitch so that they, if they spend that 2 seconds, 3 seconds, they're like, okay, wow, this is something that I want. This is something what I need. So the pitch is critical. Selling the mood, right? So when you are selling what you're trying to convey, when you wear this jacket or when you wear this shirt, you are essentially a part of this community, a part of this lifestyle, a part of, you know, an experience. I think selling the mood is important. Yeah, you want them to, hopefully, because of buying your product, because of wearing your shirt, they are to some extent a part of another community that hopefully, without wearing it, they would never be able to be a part of. So selling the mood as well, call to action, right? So when we're doing a video, sometimes keep in mind, even though it is a video format, just like any other content, whether it be text on blogs or pictures, there always should be a call to action, meaning that you are, as a marketer, we are hoping that the target audience, whoever sees this piece of content, they are very clear that what we expect them to do. Either they want to learn more about this, they want to be able to download, let's say, a piece of information, or they want to potentially direct them to another piece of, let's say, content. That call to action needs to be not only clear, but it also needs to be aligned with our marketing objectives. So like we mentioned before, you know, these are the 4 key video campaigns. And when we're creating our video, sometimes I think it's important from a product perspective. So when we're looking at products, right? So whether it be a hardware product, whether it be a shirt, whatever, it is about testing the product itself, you know, because you never know what the target audience, the people that you're trying to aim at, what do they care most about your product? Is it the look and feel? Is it the functionalities? Is it the, I don't know, some of the intangibles because of that brand awareness? I mean, these are things that as a video creator, I think is important, right? Because you want to be able to understand what attributes to the viewers of your video care the most. And if they care about the look and feel the most, then we want to be able to allocate at least, you know, more of the time of the video to showcase the look and feel of it, because that's what the target audience care the most. So you don't want to be focusing in on a specific attribute that potentially your target audience doesn't really even care about, right? Feature-based videos, right? So when we're doing videos, sometimes we like to highlight the key features, right? And so make sure that when we're doing these videos, also make sure that we highlight these different key features, not only showing them just by text, but actually showing them how it's actually being used, right? So this gives them a better understanding of, oh, okay, so when you're talking about the features, this is how or what you mean. Lifestyle focus too, right? So like I said, sometimes it's not all about the technicalities of it. It's not always about the functionality of it. Sometimes it's just part of that community. You know, for example, you let them know that, let's say when they buy this shorts or this pants or this shirt, they almost, because from the exhibition of your video, they can become a part of this crowd, which this is the crowd that they want to be a part of because they're very hip, they're very popular, things of that nature. And the content itself, I think, yeah, like I mentioned before, it is very, very targeted or segmented, right? Because you always have to think about when you're creating this content, let's say if you're creating it in North America versus in Europe or in Asia, sometimes the localization becomes very very important, right? Because the different regions, they have different interests and also at the same time gender as well. If you're focusing more on females, then maybe the information that you want to portray or present it, yeah, maybe a little bit softer. Whereas let's say if you're focusing in more on the guys, you know, the boys, you know, whatever, sometimes they like to see stuff that's a little bit more robust. So we spent essentially about an hour just now talking about from the get-go, you know, digital marketing, comparing it from the traditional and the, let's say, the more of a traditional versus digital marketing. We also talked about why we selected crowdfunding as one of today's key topics. And through that discussion, we highlighted 3 components of considering Eswatini's a diverse economy, especially focusing in on apparel and fashion. Secondly, the product development process, potentially from traditional versus, let's say, the social aspect, allowing or including crowdfunding in the entire development process. And of course, these 2 makes up key important reasons. But lastly, like I said, in order to have a successful campaign, I think it's almost certain that you have to have a breadth of digital marketing experience to not only be able to engage with your target audience, but also at the same time add on the component of public relations, PR, to be able to get that brand message across, right? And furthermore, in our last segment, we talked about the video creation, right? How video creation is important. Video creation, like I said, I think nowadays, video is for certain one of the key content format that's out there, right? So we got to be able to think about, in terms of video, how can we, through this format, tell our story to people that potentially either know about our brand or most likely don't know our brand, right? But potentially they have a couple of seconds, they have maybe 10, 15 seconds to on their smartphone to be able to learn about it. And so we need to be able to create that video to not only tell about these target audience, who we are, but by buying or wearing our product, you know, by supporting us, hopefully they can get the benefits that they're looking for. Now, in our next and last segment is really looking at the campaign process itself. Now, the campaign process, to some extent, applies to any marketing campaigns that you will encounter, right? So it's not only just for crowdfunding campaigns. I mean, for any type of marketing campaigns that you will be engaging from now until, you know, in the future, I think the campaign process itself should always be looked at from 3 components. So it shouldn't just be, you know, one phase, but we should essentially think of it as a 3-component process where we are looking at it from the before the campaign, which is the pre-campaign, during the campaign, which it could be as short as a day, as 1 day, to as long as, let's say, maybe 40 days, 50 days, 60 days, whatever. And then, of course, the after the campaign, which is the post-campaign, right? So when we're dealing with marketing campaigns, I think it's essential to be able to break up the different stages of the campaign. And by doing that, not only do you make your planning more manageable, but as an overall planning, it makes it more complete. So next up, we'll be looking at these 3 different phases, these 3 different segments. And these 3 different segments, we're going to be looking at what you potentially can do and what you need to be watched out for, and what are some of the things that will be important in terms of moving on to the next stage. So first off, let's look at the pre-campaign management, right? So when we have an idea or when we decide to conduct this marketing campaign, we really need to think about what's our positioning, right? And because that really dictates what type of messages, who are you trying to target, and ultimately what type of information you need to prepare for. And so with that being said, I think sometimes when we're looking at the positioning or doing the positioning analysis, we need to be able to take advantage of multiple data resources or data sources. It could involve, the actual hard data that you collect, let's say, from different sources. It can also be included of looking at potential trends. These trends, like how these trends affect your brands down the road. Also look at in terms of what you are trying to position or the product that you're trying to push out. What are some of the sentiment around this product in specific areas and locations? And then lastly, like I said, based on the positioning that you have identified, what are the necessary or digital strategies that needs to be included in order to successfully promote this brand to the target audience or the intended audience that you have set forth. And like I said, right, sometimes by starting out new brands, by starting out a new product, you have to do extensive testing because you really don't know your target audience. What do they consider to be the most valuable attribute, or what do they care the most about your product, right? So it could be, like we mentioned before, the look and feel of the exterior. It could be the actual physical features, or it could be the lifestyle that it brings when they start using this thing, right? But however, sometimes this is really difficult. I mean, because and it takes time too. When you are doing these type of positioning and testing, you can do it digitally, like we talked about. There's a lot of data that you can potentially secure, but like I said, with any digital solution in any digital age, sometimes we need to include the people component in the process as well, because I think it is also necessary to be able to see facial reactions, see their engagements of your product, right? So by conducting, let's say, focus group testing, by bringing people in and allowing them to actually play with your product, wear your thing, and see their reactions on their faces, their facial gestures, their body language. Those are all things that can help you better understand when you are promoting this product. What can you expect from your target audience? And in terms of the pre-marketing, pre-campaign, social media is a must. That's how you sort of get the potential target audience warmed up. And even though you may not be very clear of who they are, however, social media nowadays is so prevalent and there's so many options that you really need to think about. Instead of engaging in all social media, in all the platforms, find the one that best suits you, right? So for example, if your product is more suited, let's say if we're creating an apparel or a fashion t-shirt for females, then we want to understand where do these females that we want to engage, what social media do they use? And so in this case, it may be Pinterest, because Pinterest is more female-driven platform. Or let's say if our product is something where visually it's very appealing, and then furthermore it is suitable for the representation of on pictures, then that might be Instagram, right? So I mean, with social media, nowadays it's not only do they have the underlying process is not that big of a deal. There's not that many differences, but it really gets back to who are you targeting, and then based on the profile or the persona of your target audience, going back and identifying a suitable social media platform to be able to engage these people that you would like to reach out to. And of course, with any social media, I think there's a lot of data around that. So you can, based on your engagement or the use of social media, there will be a lot of data that can be outputted. So for you to better understand what works, what doesn't work, but also at the same time, based on the data that you have received, make better judgment in terms of what do I need to do in terms of what we talked about, that brand positioning. Who and what and how should we engage ultimately the intended target audience that we are looking at or trying to engage with. However, most of the time it's easier said than done, right? If we know these are the people that we want to engage, but how, right? How sometimes involves testing, because no one, at the end of the day, no one really knows, don't have a clear solution, to be honest. In fact, a clear solution or a clear answer can only be achieved through rigorous discipline testing, right? So for example, let's say if you're trying to reach out to this Gen Z, right? Or the millennials, you want to be able to test what type of stories or the storytelling process do they resonate with the most, right? What type of, let's say, the color of your website or the video that you create, what are some of the components or attributes do they care the most, right? These are all things that we can take consideration in terms of testing. And then furthermore, we can also have data to sort of back up our conclusion, right? So for example, let's say if we were to create a version that specifically focuses on millennials in a specific segment of the group, such as, let's say, females that are working folks, we want to be able to test, hey, is this a group that sort of resonates with the messages that we are promoting, or is it another group? So by doing rigorous testings, doing market testings, especially with landing pages, especially websites, it gives us an opportunity to be able to fine-tune our message specifically for our intended audience. And of course, I think landing page setup, sometimes it can be tricky. But of course, make sure that whatever you are trying to test, make sure that you have adequate, pictures, videos, you have, necessary call to actions. These are all different things that you can do A/B testing on, just to make sure that, the concept of A/B testing is really testing what is one piece of information that when you change from A to B, you are able to test it on the same target audience group and try to identify whether it be the A change or the B change, do they have higher receptibility? And so that allows you to better understand that, hey, based on this intended target audience, I need to be able to focus and maintain on my, let's say, A criteria or my A functions and so forth. And of course, also get an early understanding of what's that conversion metrics, right? So ultimately, when we're doing these campaigns, I think at the end of the day, at the end of the campaign, it's really about results. Yeah, we want to make sure that not only are we bringing the right people in, okay, not only are we able to engage with our intended audience, but more so, these are the people that are, at the end of the day, are the ones that are willing to support us, right? That are maybe at the end of the day will open up their wallets and buy our t-shirt, or at the end of the day, these are the people that are willing to maybe share our message to their audience, right? So we want to make sure, not only do we want to test what messages do we have a better resonation with the target audience that we have set forth, but we want to make sure that this target audience is the people that are willing at the end to be able to support or be able to do what we hope them to do. And so that involves a lot of data that definitely will need to be able to be considered and also analyze, that ultimate conversion factor. And then, of course, public relations is always something that I think is not considered to be a digital marketing, but it is to some extent a marketing feel of its own. But however, at the same time, in any marketing campaign, it is a very critical component piece. And even Bill Gates, one of the top technologists in the world, he even said once, yeah, if I had $1 left, I would probably spend it on public relations. And keep in mind, he's a very technical technology person. Even he would say something like this, right? So when we're going through these different PR or media marketing, I think it's all also looking at influencer marketing as well, right? So we're especially with these different campaigns, I think sometimes we need to be able to not only have the brand itself say how good they are, but really about how do we build up a community of people or influencers to help us, our brand, build our awareness, build our credibility, and essentially sort of be that advocate of our brand, right? And media folks are influencers of one kind. And so a lot of times through their power of, let's say, publications or their exposure through impressions and so forth, by having them talk about your brand, sometimes it is almost as effective, let's say, as what you say about your brand as well, right? So those are some of the things that we really need to consider. And just to give you an idea, I mean, sometimes the effects of PR or influencer marketing can be astronomical. Aside from, let's say, the traffic that you're able to bring on through, let's say, advertisements and whatever, but by engaging with these different media influencers, sometimes the traffic can be much, much more than what you expected, because a lot of them have influencing power in terms of their readers and in terms of the community that they reside. So not only do they help you bring traffic to whatever marketing campaign pages that you have created, but also at the same time, it creates the social effect where allows a lot of the people that are looking at your content, they are able to share with their group of, let's say, friends and family, and even, you know, their colleagues, and that ultimately transitions into a viral social media effect. So we talked about what we do pre-campaign. Now let's look at what we do during the campaign. So when we're actually running the campaign, whether it be it's for 15 days, 30 days, 45 days, I think the duration itself is not the key point. I mean, it could be a very short campaign, even as short as maybe 1 day, right? But of course, probably not for crowdfunding campaigns, but for marketing campaigns in general, it can be as short as 1 day. It can be as short as maybe an hour, or it could be as long as, let's say, a couple months, right? Now, when we are doing crowdfunding campaigns specifically, I think the platform management becomes very critical, because you are utilizing the platform to engage with these different target audience that you are intending. And so we got to be able to understand what are some of the features on these platforms that we can take advantage of. So, you know, for example, on these platforms, you can, not only does it indicate how much you have raised, what are the number of backers that you have engaged, and furthermore, there are features and options where it allows you to sort of update your current progress of your campaign to these different backers and target audience that you have set forth. Digital media, I think I've already mentioned, but more importantly, I think during the campaign, whether it be a long campaign or a short campaign, we also need to look at sort of the offline options. Like I mentioned before, I think the best synergy, the best campaigns are usually online, offline, right? So those are sort of, you know, when you're able to sort of combine the online, offline, it builds up that synergy that allows for a greater, let's say, impact in terms of the reach that you are trying to achieve. So not only are you engaging people online on social media or through advertisement, but also at the same time look for relevant events that you can potentially participate and share about the same campaign content information that, just as you would, let's say, online, but do it at a, let's say, an offline setting. And so during that, synergy, the people that are at the live or the physical event can hopefully be able to share that information through their network live during the event as well. Cross promotions, right? So when we're doing these campaigns, think about how can we, not only are we trying to create our own traction, but how can we leverage other brands to potentially work with us? So in the past, when we were doing these crowdfunding campaigns, let's say when we're doing this fishbowl where they plants these different plants, we also think about what are other brands that we can engage with, and let's say these different plants that they can also utilize our product for. So these are all potential cross promotions that we can actually do. And furthermore, because it's all digital nowadays, I think digital marketing, digital promotion, sometimes you are no longer restricted by, let's say, physical borders and things of that nature, right? So you can essentially reach out to other brands that are not only, let's say, at Eswatini, but also you can reach out to other brands in, let's say, other parts of the world to be able to leverage these type of cross promotions. Influencer endorsements are big, right? Yeah, instead of, like I said, instead of you telling other people how good you are, it's really important about identifying people that have already influencing power in their specific niche fields, in their specific niche communities, and having them to not only learn about what you're doing, but also through their interpretation of your product, your brand, have them be able to explain to other people or introduce your product to other people. And so this way, to some extent, their endorsement or their introduction sometimes to these potential target audience that you're reaching might be more acceptable versus, let's say, the information that you present or provide directly from a brand perspective as well. Target market events. I mean, a lot of times during these events, there's a lot of these similar events that potentially really lines up with what you are doing. And so once again, I think digital is always key because that is always consistent. It doesn't matter where you are, but do bring in these different targeted marketing events so that it can build a synergy with your digital strategy. These are some of these different physical events that we usually accommodate with the digital campaigns that we are running at the same time, right? So hopefully from this portion of the talk, you guys really understand the process of the online and offline. So don't give lesser value of offline because that, to some extent, sometimes not only allows you to be able to have that face-to-face engagement, but also at the same time take advantage of the offline events to be able to create more content to be able to be fed up or fed to the online experience, right? So not everyone are going to be able to meet you at your exhibition booth or at the next event, but potentially they would like to. But because they're not able to because of the physical constraint, sometimes bring that offline experience, that physical experience through the form of, let's say, a video or a form of some pictures, a form of, let's say, interviews. Bring that experience onto online because ultimately, the content itself fuels the online experience, the online digital marketing. And in order to be able to have a successful online digital marketing, you are required to have content, right? To be able to further engage with the audience, which is a bigger audience for sure online, so that they would be a part of this whole entire process. So post-campaign, usually this is where your campaign has ended and now you are looking at what do I need to do now, right? So your product has gone through the pre-campaign. It has gone through the campaign itself, which it can be anywhere from 15 days to 40 days. Now, after the campaign that has ended, now we're going to think about how do we make this into a business, right? To really be able to promote our brand. So in terms of the conclusion of the campaign itself, afterwards, we really need to think about what are some of the things that we can potentially upsell, right? So for example, let's say if we're making a shirt, can we tag along and maybe aside from a shirt, we can also add pants to it or shorts to it, right? So we really think about from a business perspective, when we are promoting this online, after the campaign, which was, during the campaign, it was specifically for that apparel shirt. How can we bring that synergy offline, after the campaign and continuing that engagement? But the only way you're able to continue it is because if you have additional products or additional functions and features you would like to offer. And so that's where, that upsell, cross-sell promotion is really important. And so sometimes people forget that, right? I mean, in order to continue on to engage with the people that you have already reached out to, you need more information. You need new promotional options in order for you to be able to sort of have that as an offer, right? So make sure to think about that. Don't think about it after the campaign has ended, but think about it even prior to the campaign, during the campaign, or even before the campaign. Be prepared. Referral marketing, right? I mean, during the campaign, before the campaign, we have invested a huge amount of resources to promote our product, to promote our brand, right? Because the branding success in this digital marketing age is really about that digital marketing promotion. So since we have already created that type of attraction, how can we, based on the people that we have already targeted or reached out to or engaged, how can we continue on that process in terms of utilizing referral marketing to allow them to sort of share our information through their network, right? Sometimes that is very key. And lastly, I think, with all that digital marketing, ultimately, I think product needs to be shipped out. It needs to be fulfilled, right? And so sometimes we forget about this as well, right? Because, at the end of the day, these folks that were supporters or key, important supporters of your campaign, they still want to be able to reach, to be able to receive whatever you promised them, right? So how do you go about, successfully fulfill whatever you promised them and actually allow them to be able to receive the product that they were hopefully or anticipating, right? So as a product creator or a brand owner, we really need to think about through that process, how can I make my inventory more efficient? What are some of the process that I need to consider in terms of, the logistics of pick, sort, and pack, and furthermore, the shipping costs where when we are dealing with cross borders, cross Atlantics, different continents, these are all cost issues that we need to really consider, not after the campaign, but even before the campaign, thinking about how can we deliver a successful, enjoyable fulfillment process, for the customers as well. Support, feedback, these are all critical, right? Ultimately, as a brand owner, we not only want to associate ourselves to one specific product, but potentially it can be a variety of products, right? And so with each individual product, I think it is important that when we are not only creating it, but when we are promoting this, we also get the opportunity to listen to, potential users of our product and their feedback, their comments, their suggestions. These are all very critical. And from a digital age, sometimes, the feedback, like I mentioned before, customer reviews, those are all things that not only will it help you from a brand owner perspective, because it helps you create a better product, but also at the same time, the feedback, the comments that are left behind, the reviews that are left behind, it also helps your digital strategy, because your potential future new customers, they're all looking at this information as, let's say, the basis to or reference to whether they want to purchase this product down the road. And furthermore, I think it's really about distribution, right? Because once we have a successful campaign, we want to be able to get this out to the market in masses, right? And sometimes we still need to utilize sort of these brick and mortar channel distributions to be able to get it out there. Of course, sometimes these brick and mortar is one option. Online retail is now a big option as well. Online, for example, I mean, there are the Amazons, there's the eBays, there's also a lot of the, the very niche ones, especially let's say, towards crafts and clothing and so forth. So whatever your product is, I think it's important to be able to not only be able to find brick and mortar stores, these distribution channels, but also identify digital channels as well. Because at the end of the day, because you have gone through the whole entire marketing process online through, let's say, crowdfunding, through marketing campaigns, you have generated a huge amount of information, a huge amount of, let's say, hopefully positive social proof information online that hopefully at the end of the day, if you were able to identify some successful e-commerce platforms to engage with, you would be able to leverage these positive information to help you drive additional customers down the road, and furthermore, hopefully a branding success. A final note, what do we learn today? I think, through this 90 minutes, an hour and a half workshop, it's usually about, what we shared today. And some of the key takeaways, I just want to, sort of reiterate. First off, I mean, do think about the digital versus the traditional. And in fact, a lot of the traditional marketing no longer exists anymore. So we got to potentially welcome sort of the digital age with open arms and be used to trying out new things, especially from a digital marketing perspective. And then also we talked about the key to a lot of these digital marketing. It's really about targeting your audience, the content, the context, and finally the medium itself, right? And of course, I think with the internet, with digital marketing, it is about leveraging the power of social, the social meaning, social media, meaning social proof, social, even crowdfunding, right? And with crowdfunding, I think it's really about the dance floor theory, right? So how can we, whether it be crowdfunding or any type of marketing, it is about bringing in that momentum, bringing in that social proof so that hopefully when you're selling this or when you are presenting this information to your intended audience, they don't feel isolated as, sort of being the first one accepting your product or trying your product, but hopefully it's already a defined trend or a fashion statement that they don't want to miss out, but they want to be a part of. And the last two, content is king. Like I said, I think online, offline, why is that important? Because offline allows you to be able to create content and be able to create content to bring it online to introduce or share with people online, which at the end of the day would be a bigger audience, right? And furthermore, on digital, for digital marketing, in essence, the core essence is really about content, right? And this content, comes in different various formats. It could be video, it could be text, it could be, audio. So it allows the user itself to have a different experience through these type of different content formats. And essentially, you're allowing these target audience that you're trying to achieve to be able to experience a different journey along the way. And understand, not being sold at, but really learning about the product, learning about the essence of your brand. And hopefully, not only do they become a user or buyer of your product, but hopefully through all this type of positive content, through all this type of information, they become an advocate of your brand, right? And so, and lastly, I think with any campaign, I think it's really treating it as a whole entire process. So don't just look at what you do during the campaign, or don't just look at what you do before the campaign, but treat it holistically, because each one, essentially depends on the other one and vice versa. And so when you plan for the campaign, from an overall perspective, I think your chances of a success, especially as the topic of today's workshop, brand success in the digital age, your chances would be much higher when you're looking at it from an entire process. So with that being said, thank you all today for spending 1.5 hours with me, and hopefully you were able to gain some information about digital marketing, but more importantly, from the perspective of crowdfunding, and hopefully you were able to gather some insights and maybe some ideas about how at eSwatini, leveraging this type of marketing campaign, potentially you can utilize it and apply it to your own setting, whether it be apparel products, whether it be other products that you currently have in mind. But anyway, I think from a entire perspective, I think the things that you learned today would be very helpful, especially in this new digital age. Thank you very much, and hope to see all of you again. Thank you.